It seems like Nvidia, they're the it's company right now
Yeah,
in tech. Everybody's watching them to see what they do next,
for sure.
especially their investments. And recently they made a move that has a lot of people talking, a lot of people scratching their heads.
Mm.
They bought a stake in WeRide, a Chinese company that makes self-driving cars, autonomous vehicles.
Yes, a Chinese autonomous vehicle company. And as soon as that news hit, WeRide's stock price just went through the roof, like 83%.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what happens when, like a big player like Nvidia comes in and shows interest. You get that kind of market reaction.
But here's the thing. Their financials, WeRide's financials, don't exactly scream, we're about to take over the world.
Right.
So we're going to try to figure that out today. What's going on? We're diving deep into this French financial publication that did a whole analysis of this investment. And, well, it's juicy, let me tell you.
It's definitely interesting.
Yeah. So to set the stage here, NVIDIA and WeRide, they're not strangers, right?
No, not at all. They've actually been working together since 2017.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, WeRide is all about this autonomous vehicle technology, and they've been expanding pretty rapidly, into different cities and countries across the globe.
So they've got the history, they're in a hot sector, it sounds promising.
Yeah.
But then you look at their revenue, and it's actually been shrinking in recent years, and they're only expected to make like $51.1 million in 2024, which is less than they were making before.
Yeah, that's a head scratcher for sure. I mean, why would Nvidia put money into a company that's getting smaller? It's a good question. Is this maybe a strategic move? Trying to get into that Chinese autonomous vehicle market? Or do they see something that we don't? Some kind of hidden potential in WeRide that the market's missing?
And on top of the shrinking revenue, their profit margins, woof, they're tiny.
Yeah.
Like 4% in their services sector, just 4%?
Yeah, most tech companies are, they're shooting for something more like 20% or even higher if they can get it. So 4%, yeah, that raises some big red flags for sure. Makes you wonder if they can even make money at that rate.
Right. It's tough to run a business like that. And then there's this other layer, the whole transparency thing. WeRide, they use those offshore structures, in the Cayman Islands, like a lot of Chinese companies do
Yeah,
for their finances.
it is a common practice, you're right. But it does make you wonder about transparency, in corporate governments. Can you really get a clear picture of their financial health when things are structured that way? Is a question.
So we've got this company, WeRide, shrinking revenue, tiny profit margins, questions about transparency, and yet NVIDIA, the golden child of tech, decides to invest.
Right.
It's a real puzzle.
It is. It makes you think, right? I mean, it's tempting to just, follow NVIDIA's lead, but we've got to remember, even the smartest investors, they make mistakes sometimes. And what works for them might not work for everybody else.
So before anyone rushes out and buys WeRide stock just because NVIDIA did, we need to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
NVIDIA may be seeing something we don't, but anytime a stock price seems like it's not matching up with how the company's actually doing, the fundamentals, that's when you've got to do your research.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about some of the other moves that NVIDIA made. Like they sold off some pieces of their portfolio too, right?
They did. Yeah, they got rid of their stakes in SoundHound, Nano X Imaging, and Serve Robotics.
Not exactly the biggest names.
No.
And honestly, not really a surprise that they sold them.
No, these were pretty small holdings for NVIDIA. So, while it shows they are actively managing their portfolio, it doesn't really make a huge financial impact.
And from what I read in this analysis, it sounds like that SoundHound sale, that was kind of expected. Like the writing was on the wall.
Yeah, probably saw it wasn't really a perfect fit and decided to move on.
Makes sense. Then there's Nano X Imaging. They had a tiny stake in that, like almost nothing for a company NVIDIA's size.
Yeah, probably weren't seeing the returns they were hoping for there.
Right. And then Serve Robotics, that seems like just like textbook investment strategy.
Yeah, it sounds like they had a convertible top that matured, so they got their money back, like right on schedule. Pretty standard stuff. And they also reduced their stake in ARM Holdings a little bit, but again, ARM's so big that it barely made a dent.
So some minor adjustments, but let's get back to the big story here. WeRide, what could NVIDIA possibly see in this company that would make them invest despite, all the red flags we talked about?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are a few possibilities, and
Okay, lay them on me.
well, maybe NVIDIA's just thinking long-term. Maybe they're not so worried about WeRide's numbers right now, and they're more focused on what they could become in the future, especially in that Chinese autonomous vehicle market, which is just exploding.
So like a venture capitalist, they're betting on a startup that's not making money today, but could be huge down the road.
Exactly. China's a massive market for self-driving cars, and if NVIDIA can get a solid foothold there, that could be incredibly valuable, way more than what they're investing now. And working with a company that's already there, like WeRide, that gives them a big advantage over, competitors who are still trying to break in.
I can see that, but wouldn't it be smarter to partner with a company that's actually doing well financially already?
Well, yeah, you'd think so, right? But there might be other things we're not seeing. Maybe NVIDIA's impressed with their technology, you know? Maybe WeRide has some unique patented system or a really innovative approach that could give them a leg up, even if their financials aren't the best right now.
So they're banking on WeRide's tech to sort of leapfrog them ahead.
It's possible, or maybe it's a little bit of everything, you know? The potential of the Chinese market, the technology, and maybe even the fact that the investment wasn't that big for them. Remember, NVIDIA's portfolio is pretty small compared to how much the company's actually worth. So this WeRide investment, while it's not nothing, it's a pretty calculated risk for them.
It's like throwing a dart at a dartboard. And even if they completely miss, it's not going to hurt them too bad.
Exactly, but for the average investor, someone who might be thinking about following NVIDIA's lead here, they have to really weigh the potential rewards against the risks. WeRide's shrinking revenue, those low profit margins, those are serious issues. And it's not clear at all if they can turn things around.
So what should investors be watching for, like in the next few months, to see if this gamble's going to pay off or not?
Well, keep an eye on their revenue, obviously. Can they start making money consistently? That's the big one. If they can't show some serious progress there, then it's hard to see how they can justify what their company's valued at right now.
What about their profit margins? Any chance those are going to improve, or are they stuck in this low profit rut?
That's another key indicator. Investors want to see returns. And a company that's consistently making tiny profits, that's not going to attract investors or keep the ones they have. So yeah, profit margins, that's something to watch closely.
It all comes down to the bottom line, right? Show me the money.
Exactly. All the hype in the world doesn't matter if they can't actually deliver and prove that they can be a successful business.
So revenue growth, better profit margins. What else should people be looking for?
Well, keep an eye out for any big partnerships or contracts they might announce, especially with, major car companies. A big deal like that could be a sign that their technology is starting to gain some real traction on the market.
Makes sense. And what about competition? There are a lot of companies trying to get into this autonomous vehicle space. How does WeRide stack up against the others?
That's a great point, and it's something investors should definitely consider. WeRide's up against some giants, big car companies and well-funded startups. They have to find a way to stand out, whether it's their technology, their partnerships, or just how they plan to get their product out there, their go-to-market strategy. So, yeah, keep an eye on the competitive landscape, too.
So basically, it's too early to tell if Nvidia made the right call by investing in WeRide.
Pretty much. It's high risk, high reward. WeRide could become a major player, but they have a lot to prove. Only time will tell if they can live up to all this hype.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners today? What should they be thinking about after hearing all this? Okay, so we've laid it all out, right? WeRide, their finances are, well, they're not great, but Nvidia, they're still going all in, placing their bet. What could they be seeing that maybe everybody else is missing?
Well, one possibility is they're thinking long term. They're not so focused on how WeRide's doing right now, but more on what they could become, especially in China. That autonomous vehicle market over there, it's just booming.
So it's like they're venture capitalists, right? Putting money into a startup that maybe isn't profitable yet, but has a chance to be a big deal in the future.
Exactly. China's a huge market for autonomous vehicles. And if NVIDIA can get in on that early, that's a huge advantage. And partnering with a local company like WeRide, well, that just makes sense, right? It's a lot easier than trying to break in from the outside.
Yeah, I get that. But wouldn't it make more sense to partner with a company that's, already successful?
You would think, right? But there might be other things going on here. Maybe NVIDIA sees something special in WeRide's technology, something we're not seeing. Maybe they've got some patented system, or they're doing things in a way that nobody else is, even if their financials aren't amazing right now.
So they're betting on WeRide's tech to give them an edge, basically.
Yeah, possibly. Or maybe it's a combination of things, the potential in China, the technology, and maybe even the price. NVIDIA didn't have to spend a fortune to get a stake in WeRide. Their portfolio is actually pretty small compared to how big of a company they are. So this investment, it's not nothing, but it's a calculated risk for them.
It's like they're tossing a coin, and even if it lands on tails, they're not going to lose their shirt.
Exactly. But for regular investors, the people who are thinking, should I buy WeRide stock because NVIDIA did, they've got to think about the risks too. WeRide's revenue is shrinking, their profits are tiny. Those are big problems. And we don't know if they can fix them.
So let's say I'm an investor, and I'm thinking about buying WeRide stock. What should I be watching for in the next few months to see if this is going to work out?
Well, first of all, watch their revenue. See if they can start making consistent money. That's the most important thing. If they can't show some real growth there, then it's hard to justify the value of their company.
And what about their profit margins? Are those going to get any better, or are they stuck with these tiny profits?
That's another big one, yeah. Investors want to see returns. And a company that's barely making any profit, well, they're not going to attract investors. That's just the reality. So yeah, keep a most eye on those profit margins.
It's all about the money, right? At the end of the day.
Exactly. All the hype in the world doesn't matter if a company can't actually deliver and show that they could be a successful business.
So we're watching revenue, we're watching profit margins. What else?
Pay attention to any big announcements about partnerships or contracts, especially with those big car companies. If WeRide can land a deal with a major automaker, that could be a sign that people believe in their technology, that it's gaining some real traction.
What about the other companies in this space, the competition? There are a lot of players in the autonomous vehicle game. How does WeRide stack up against them?
That's a good question, and it's something investors definitely need to think about. WeRide's competing with some big names, established car companies, well-funded startups. They've got to find a way to stand out, whether it's their tech, their partnerships, or even just how they plan to bring their product to market. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on the competition.
So bottom line, we don't know yet if Nvidia made a good move by investing in WeRide.
Nope, it's too early to say. It's a high-risk, high-reward situation. They could be huge, but they've got a lot to prove. We'll just have to wait and see if they can live up to all the hype.
All right, so for our listeners today, what's the big takeaway? What should they be thinking about after hearing all this? I think the big thing here is, don't just follow the crowd, even when it's a company like Nvidia that everyone's excited about. Do your own research, look past the hype, and really understand, the nuts and bolts of the company before you invest.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in a field like autonomous vehicles, things change so fast. What looks like a sure thing today could be, old news tomorrow.
It's a good reminder that your market doesn't always get it right. Sometimes a stock price gets inflated just because of hype and speculation, even if the company isn't doing that well.
That's true. People get caught up in the excitement, that fear of missing out, and they make decisions they wouldn't normally make. Remember, investing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about making smart choices based on solid research, not chasing the latest trend.
Yeah, like that old saying, buy low, sell high, but sometimes it's hard to know what's actually low when there's so much buzz around a company.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to really understand the company, their financials, how they make money, who their competition is. Don't just go with the hype. Take a step back, analyze the situation, and make your own informed decision.
So any final thoughts on this whole Nvidia WeRide situation? What should our listeners be taking away from this?
Well, Nvidia's move is definitely interesting. It tells us they believe in the future of self-driving cars, especially in China. But whether WeRide is the right company to bet on, that's still up in the air. Their financials are a bit of a concern, and it'll be interesting to see how they address those in the coming months.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. WeRide's a company to watch, but we don't know yet if they'll be the next big thing or just a flash in the pan.
And for everyone listening, this is a perfect example of why you've got to do your eye search before investing. Don't just read the headlines, dig into the details, understand the risks, and make decisions that are right for you and your investment goals.
Great advice. All right, well, that's it for today's deep dive into the world of autonomous vehicles and NVIDIA's intriguing investment in WeRide. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.